Hey, welcome teachers to another Wolang Wednesday class all about curriculum. Today, we're talking about how to best design units for proficiency. You ready to get started? Here we go. Welcome if you're new around these parts. My name is Devin and I am the teacher author and curriculum creator, designer, all the things behind La Libre Language Learning, si tu parles français, or La Libre Language Learning if you're a Spanish teacher. I used to walk on the wild side with both of those. So let me know where you are watching from today and something that you taught today in the comments below. Oh, and make sure that you tell me if everything is working correctly and that all of the things in terms of technology are working well, like we can hear. That would help me out so greatly. But without further ado, let's jump right into what we got going on today. We've got a short class today because we're talking real specifics about how to design your unit for proficiency and which one is really the most efficient. This is one of those questions for curriculum that comes up a lot, especially if you are, I would say it's kind of a double-edged sword. You're fortunate if you're starting with a blank slate, but it's also a lot of work. So one of the first things that always comes up is, how are we going to design this bad boy? Because it's a lot of content to organize. And it is definitely very true that organization is really everything when it comes to content. However, when it comes to language and proficiency, less is more. That is the name of the game for today's class. Less language is more in terms of not how often we speak and how much we're speaking with kids. That is, of course, still 90%, 100 if you can get it. Yeah, 100 if you can get it, that's awesome. But let's be honest, I was always striving to even just get to 90. But more along the lines of what words you're using, because what happens a lot with content is that it just gets overstuffed. So that's what I mean by organization is really everything when it comes to content. All right, looks like we are good in here. Beautiful. So let me know in the comments below where you are watching from. Oh, let's get started. Let's get rolling in here. So here's the question of the day. What's the best unit design? If you are Spanish 2, trying to figure out exactly how you're going to make all the pieces work together, and you have a little bit of luck in terms of maybe you are working with a little bit of a textbook, but you also have a little bit of freedom in how you're going to structure your units. What's the best design to go with? Well, first, let's look at all the things that are out there. Because honestly, the real answer is the best unit design for proficiency, for the maximum amount of comprehensible input available to your students that you can use in your classroom, because CI is not really a method, it's just an umbrella of methodologies. So for proficiency, there's lots of different options out there for you when it comes to curriculum and unit design. There's no one size fits all, especially because, oh my gosh, when I talk to world language teachers on Instagram and Facebook or all the things, they tell me all these different things about exactly how many contact hours that they have with students. That's very important for your unit design. And exactly when those intervals are that they see their students. So that's going to play a huge role in exactly how you need to organize your units. So keep that in mind with the suggestions that I'm giving you, is that there's lots of different options. But here are the 4 that I think work the best, that I've seen and heard other teachers doing and that I've tried myself, and that when I am doing curriculum work, these are the ones that I really go to. So the most common ones are content-based units. Content-based units being things like, we are going to learn about how to get around a city. We're going to learn modos de transporte. We're going to learn prepositional phrases in order to get us from one place to the next. And then our grammar is going to be maybe like if we're in Spanish, I know I used to do this in Spanish too, a lot of está phrases and things like that to really emphasize location and the difference between using es and está. And then we might also use things like I am going to. We might teach a lot of those phrases and use a lot of those in context. You know, that's a very content-based unit, with the focus being we're going to learn how to get around town. And don't be like me and try and teach your students how to read a map or test them with a map. Such a bad idea. So bad. So many visual problems. The second thing that you can do is a skill-based unit. And you know, a unit is really just that's just what we're using in order to show how we're separating contents, but there's lots of different ways that you can do this. When you're working with a skill-based unit, what you are working with is that instead of it being focused entirely around the content of getting around town, their focus is the skill that they are learning, which is being able to navigate a new environment or being able to maybe describe a new setting with limited content words. And that sounds very esoteric and like really up there, but what it looks like, especially in a level 1 course, could be something along the lines of learning how to describe an environment, which means that you could do that with literally any content that you wanted. And this is beautiful because it also allows for a lot of teacher freedom. If you're working in a district where there's lots and lots of teachers and they're trying to figure out why really they keep having the same problems over and over again with curriculum of people butting heads with the content, it's because teachers want to teach different things. Because honestly, the content that you pick doesn't really matter that much as long as they're getting towards their language goals and progressing, and that you are using the most heavy hitting functional chunks and structures. That's really what matters. You can use whatever content you want. So when you are looking at a skills-based structure, like I know there's a couple different curriculums that use things like this, but this works really well if you would like freedom in being able to choose which content you're going to use in order to teach that skill. Maybe if you're at the district level and you would like your teachers to be able to pick whatever content they want, but they're all driving towards the same goal of narrative mastery of the past tense. Cool. Or, I mean, we don't really do that anymore in terms of proficiency, but more along the lines of being able to easily navigate between different tenses, like, narrative mastery of the past tense might be a stepping stone on the way there. So that's what a skill-based unit looks like and sounds like. Not as popular as the content-based units because as it sounds, it can be a little bit more difficult to organize the content, but it works beautifully. Especially it gives teachers a lot of freedom. The second one, or the third one that you can do is a standards-based unit. And that is very similar to a skills-based unit in that it's based off of the standards that we have. That's the movement that we're in right now, the phase of language teaching that we are all currently in, is that we are moving towards standards-based teaching. So then you can have a standards-based curriculum where you go in short bursts and you work with maybe 1 to 2 weeks using whatever content that you want, but working towards a skill. So what does that look like if it's standards-based content? Standards-based unit. It could be something along the lines of, for 1 week, you're going to focus in on something like that novice mid performance indicator that looks like, I can understand, and this is a novice mid interpretive, I'm doing it off the fly because I was just working with this, but so it's not going to be exact, but I can understand and respond to, with occasional original phrases, but mostly with memorized phrases, a question about my preferences and opinions. So you would be working with just that skill for 1 solid week and then move on to the next one in novice mid. And then you, of course, would mix up things like interpretive, interpersonal, presentational, and intercultural and all that good stuff. But you're working on like one little thing at each time because there's really 4 or 5 in each of those modes. Like, for example, in interpersonal, you can do things along the lines of meeting needs in a conversation. So that would look like, are you able to express the fact that you don't understand what's going on? Are you able to ask somebody to slow down? Are you able to keep the conversation going with rejoinders? That's actually a novice mid skill. And the novice high is being able to keep the conversation going and asking questions to keep the conversation going. So that's something that you could really just hit hard on for a week. That's it's definitely a newer model, but you can see how well it aligns with everything that we're trying to do, right? The next thing that is very prevalent, but doesn't really have a name, but it works well, is context-based units. People usually sprinkle these in throughout, you know, like English and history teachers do this all the time. So we're starting to do it now too, because we're working with similar resources now, is context-based units. That is my official term, but that just means that you're making your unit based off of whatever resource that you're using. So it could be based off of a CI novel, or maybe you're working with a movie with your class if you're in French 3 and you're doing Le Petit Prince, and you would like to just have all of the content in your unit have to be making sure that students can understand most of what is said to them in the movie and what is written in some of the chapters and texts. That's context-based, because everything that they're learning is for a very explicit purpose, to work with a certain resource. Context-based. And then this is the last one. I like this one a lot. This is task-based. This happens a lot with portfolios, which are an amazing way to assess proficiency. But task-based units are, or even just task-based curriculums, are when you have your students working towards a specific task. So the standards help to guide you in terms of where you're going to be going. They're your little stepping stones, like maybe being able to meet your needs in a conversation, being able to present basic information about yourself, being able to, at the novice level, be able to survive in a new communicative context, in a new cultural context as well, and recognize appropriate and inappropriate behaviors. You might accidentally do some of those inappropriate behaviors, but you recognize what they are. That's the novice intercultural level of behavior from the ICCs. So those are the little stepping stones that are getting you on the way towards the task of applying to be a hotel concierge for the summer at the end of your Spanish 4 class or Chinese 4 class. And in order to do that, most people are looking for, you know, in intermediate low, intermediate mid level of mastery. So with students, I mean, intermediate mid is probably reaching pretty high for level 4, but you could definitely do it if you are in, level 3, level 4, you could probably do that for intermediate low. And these task-based units are gorgeous because you can work very specifically with language structures that feel very relevant to students based on exactly how they're going to be assessed, which is, can you finish this task? Can you, at the end of this, do you have everything that you need to in order to be a hotel concierge? That's really easy in terms of organization, not implementation, but in terms of organization of content. So those are your options that you've got here. And so looking at all of these here, listen to what speaks to you for what could be something that works well for your students. What would speak to you as the teacher? What works well for your audience and your stakeholders? Because you have a lot of options here. Don't be stuck in the idea, if you have the freedom to work with your own curriculum, of teaching the way that you were taught, which is probably a content-based unit, because there are lots of different ways that you can present content in an organized, proficiency-centered fashion that does not require that you center all of it around the idea of, okay, we're going to Morocco, so I'm going to teach a couple travel phrases. I'm going to teach how to get on and off an airplane, and then walking around the city of Morocco, some of those typical cultural interactions that they're probably going to have, and maybe some things that they need to know at a bazaar. Like, you don't have to just be limited to that, because it's not the most conducive way to teach all of the content that you might be working with. It works well for some, but not for others. You know, my favorite way really is, when it comes to what's the best unit design for proficiency, it's honestly a little bit of everything. If you have the ability to do this, try doing a little bit of unit design that's content-based, a little bit that's task-based, a little bit that's context-based. So for example, when I had the freedom to design my own curriculum and I was a department of 1 for my French 1s and 2s, it felt like a lot of work until I thought, I'm going to make some context-based units, because I already know the resources that I wanted to use. I had 2 books in mind. So I decided, instead of making a ton of work for myself, I'm just going to follow the resources that are in this CI novel and make everything that I would like my students to be able to do and all the activities that we do during the day be focused in on making sure that that novel is more accessible to them. It's really easy unit design. It's really easy unit design. Now, which one is the best for proficiency? Again, I will say the one that allows you to use the most important structures to the language and the level that your students are at, novice low, novice mid, novice high, or intermediate low. The most useful language, and that's going to go for not only what you're working with in terms of what level of students that you have in the room, whether you're teaching a level 2 class or a level 4 class, but also what is going to be the most useful in terms of what they have to do with the language. So be thinking about like their actual real life context every day of being in the classroom, talking about their lives, those types of things. And then the last one being relevant language. Relevant language is, of course, stuff that's relevant to them. That is the best unit design advice that I can give you for proficiency, is things that are relevant to your students are going to land far better than any masterful organization ever could. So make sure that above all else that you are picking things that your students are going to be into. That's the most important thing for proficiency, because without that interest, it's just not going to spark. It's not going to happen. So here are some tips that I have for you for unit design. Once you pick the one that's going to work best for you, or maybe if you're already in it in terms of that game, you already have a structure in mind, you're already working with something, and now you're ready. Maybe you're watching this now, or you're watching this summer, getting ready to revamp your curriculum for a fresh new year. Here's what you should do if you are trying to figure out how to design your unit. This is what I always do when I'm designing a unit. So number one is always start with your assessment in mind. Start with the end goal in mind. Backward design, right? And the way that you can do this is think about, it doesn't necessarily have to be the type of assessment. It's more along the lines of, how are your students going to show mastery of all of the learning that occurred during this unit? So if your students are doing a big speaking assessment at the end of your unit, don't make a lot of your stuff in the unit be about writing. That's a common mistake that I see a lot. Start with the assessment first and then go from there. What else we got? What's our number 2? Oh, this is a good one. Okay, so the second tip that I have for you is make sure that you are working more with functional words than you are with content words. So at the beginning of this class, we talked about how often in world language, what happens is not necessarily that the units are poorly organized, but that there's so much content in there that there's no way that you could ever properly organize that. And the way to get rid of excess content and to know that it's excess content are these 2 things right here. This is my tip number 2 for you. Make sure that you are focusing on function words over content words. What is the difference between those 2? A function word is something along the lines of is, does, goes, under, before, after. Those function words are the words that are used the most in language because they connect ideas together. And they are far more important than the actual content words that you are teaching. For example, if you're doing a clothing unit, it's way more important that your students are learning things like I put on and I take off, although those are technically content words, really. But things like I put, that's a high frequency verb, and that is a content. I mean, that is too many times I've said the word content here. Somebody count, make it a game. Somebody count. How many times have I said content here? The word I put is a high frequency verb, and it is a function word far more than a content word. Whereas I take off is probably more of a content that is a little bit more specific to what you're teaching, which is clothing, right? And you of course need it for the context, right? It's important. But if you have a choice, make sure that you're hitting hard more of those high frequency verbs, those things that students can recycle and use in more context and that are more important. Did you know that the vast majority of spoken language, really boils down to about 500 words. I mean, there's over 10,000 in the English language, but I forget what the exact percentage is. I learned this at a conference once, so don't quote me on the exact percentage, but it's high. It's very high. I think it's almost 80%. 80% of what we use, quote unquote, I don't remember the exact percentage, of the words that we use every day it's less than 500 words. And then the rest of the canon that we have in English is 10,000, which is nuts. In French, it's like 3,000 or 4,000. The words, all of those extra words that we got going on, those are the content words. So you might be asking yourself right now, well, how do I know? How do I know if something is a content word, something that is pretty specific to the context that you're teaching, maybe clothing, or is it a function word? Ask yourself this. Has it come up a lot in other units? Do you see it a lot on high frequency verb lists? Or not just verb lists, but high frequency lists. You can Google high frequency terms in your language. They're all over the internet for free. They're not the most high quality list, but they exist. And the only reason I know that they're not the most high quality ones is because I spent the dough to go get the good ones. You can get a high frequency dictionary of 13 different languages made by Routledge Dictionaries. I've been thumbing through these a lot, and this will help you a lot decide between whether something is a content word or a functional word. A lot of the times it gives you a list based off of so much data, but it's over like 20 million words that have been poured over through subtitle data and written media from all of the countries that speak that language. They analyze it and see how much frequency that's used, and then they compile a list of the 5,000 most frequently used based on all of those things. And you would be surprised, honestly, what words come up and which words are omitted. You can find the beginnings of a lot of those lists if you just do a quick Google search. But if you want like the real deals on a lot of these, especially if you are going deep into unit design, if you are completely revamping, it's not a bad idea to check it out. It's not a bad idea to check it out. I think you can rent it on Amazon for like $11. I got my copies for $30 each for French and Spanish. And with these high frequency lists in mind, it will really help you to decide between, is this something that needs to be included, or is this something that I might just need to run around for now or just cut out for now? Keep in mind that the magic number for teaching new terms is 10 at a time, like not even in one class, like at a time. This number used to drive me crazy because it was so hard to whittle it down to 10, but it's really 10 that the brain can handle in a new language at a time. They've got to master 10 before they can move on to anything else if it's not a cognate. So think about that as you're looking at your probably very extensive lists of vocabulary and target structures and terms. It's probably not 10. And it doesn't have to be 10, that's it, but 10 at a time, that's definitely going to limit exactly how much time that you have with your students to go over. Like, they don't need to know every single word in the entire universe that has to do with clothing, maybe just the 20 most common terms for a 2-week unit. The next thing that I would tell you that's really, really important, as we talked about here, is number 3. I guess I was already thinking there, is start with your high frequency verbs and then expand out from there. That's a really easy way to go about it. The high frequency verb lists are everywhere. You can find those everywhere. Just type in high frequency verbs, language, you'll find them. They're very easy. And it'll help to limit you with your content as well. And then I have a little bonus for you, a little bonus tip. The last thing I have for you is get to know your performance indicators for your language level. If you are working with beginners, my faves, levels 1s and 2s, then you're working with novice low, novice mid, and novice high at the end of your course, maybe, if you're lucky, maybe. So knowing what your students need to be able to do in order to hopscotch to the next level and where they're going to hit roadblocks is going to make a huge difference for you in deciding between what's good content and what's not. This is my final parting thought for you when it comes to choosing everything about a proficiency-centered curriculum is that the choices that you make in the beginning, the choices that you make to limit the amount of things that you're going to be doing with your instruction, the amount of words that are on your list, you know, like words or all of the terms, the focus, the content, all that stuff will make a world of difference in the levels that you see your students achieve. This little bit of forethought and organization of your content is going to make your life so much easier. One of the most unnecessary stresses of world language teachers is overstuffing of content, when what really needs to happen is very thoughtful trimming of the fat and getting back into high frequency, high function terms and using them to focus in on mastery of skills, getting into those building blocks of language of being able to meet your needs in conversation, confidently express opinions with the aid of visuals or gestures, and then being able to express opinions on your own with original phrases. So you can see right there, that's a little stepping stone right there. What are your students going to need in order to be able to create an original phrase on their own? That's how you cut out content, and that's how you thoughtfully design a unit. It's much less about exactly how you organize the content and much more about looking at those stepping stones that you have between here. You like my little imaginary stepping stones? I like them a lot. Where you have your students going from they're relying a lot on you with visuals and gestures and all of this help in order to talk about their needs in conversation. Things like, I need to go to the bathroom. I need to do this and that. I need to go here or there. And I also can't understand you. Now, they're going to be able to do that on their own with original phrases. That's going to bump them up a level. So what are they going to need? They're going to need the phrase need. They need to be able to say I. They need to be able to understand those questions very well. So I guess you're going to need to talk about questions. They're going to need to know those 5 or 6 phrases that come up often in conversations when you're asking for clarification. Like, boom, there's your unit right there. If you're doing a skills-based unit, that's a week of content right there. That's a week of content right there. Hey, guess what? You just learned a lot. That was a lot of stuff. Here are some tools that I got for you to help you on your journey, wherever you're at with curriculum. Know right off the bat that curriculum's messy. Curriculum's messy. You might be just designing it on the back of a napkin and putting it on like a giant chart board on your spare time, quote unquote, spare time that you might have planning this summer. That might be where you're at with curriculum. You might be also on the very opposite side of it, where I've been, where you are in the middle of a district meeting trying to decide what's going to happen with your level 3s, because everything's up in the air since level 5 changed their curriculum. So now you're trying to figure out exactly what it's going to look like. And you've got this new freedom to, I don't know, make it better, change some structures. Or maybe you're looking at a new textbook and you're trying to figure out how you're going to make it all work. Wherever you're at, curriculum's messy. So I've got some tools to help you out with this. Okay, here's the first one. And I'm going to type this in here so you can see them in the comments. If you go to, these are all free downloads. If you go to www.LaLibreLanguageLearning.com/map, M-A-P, map, all right, LaLibreLanguageLearning.com/map. Cool, all right, looks good. All right, I've just put this in the comments below here. You will see something that's going to help you immensely with your unit design. It is a curriculum map that you're going to love. It's something to help that I started using with last week's class as we were looking at a French 1 curriculum map. This is something that is a template to help you organize all of your thoughts and make sure that you are working with backward design in mind. So it's a free download. Make sure that you head there so that you can get the tool that you need in order to make sure that your units are really well designed for proficiency. And here's the second thing that you can use here. Same start. LaLibreLanguageLearning.com/check. because one of the things that I told you was make sure that you are looking at the performance indicators and keeping those at the top of your head, especially when you are making your unit design, no matter what it might be. Like whether you were doing standards-based, you're doing content-based, context-based, doesn't really matter. If you have the performance indicators like right at your fingertips, they're a free download on ACTFL. Just type in performance indicators, you'll find them. They're a free download. They're really helpful. Here's the hard part though, is that they can be a little hard to understand and they're not exactly written in teacher forward language in terms of like, okay, I know what I need to do to get my students from here to there. If it's, I don't know, if you're like me and you were a very busy teacher and at the time you're thinking like, I don't really have time for this. I don't know if this tool is helpful for me. I made you a very teacher friendly, easy to read version of this called the check, the proficiency gut check for novice highs, which I find is the most common level, I guess you could say, that we're going for in many middle school and high school world language programs. So this right here, your La Libre language learning /check, use that in the comments below to get you to where you need to be. And it's going to take you to a free download that will allow you to do a nice little checklist of, okay, am I representing all of these tasks? Am I representing all of these skills in my current lesson today? In my plans next week? In my curriculum? In my unit design? All that good stuff. And they're written in very simple language, like the way that I'm speaking to you here today. Okay, are they able to meet their needs in conversation? Are they able to talk about their immediate environment with a good bit of confidence? So it's the same skills, but it's written in a really easy way for you to check. So check that out. Those are the tips that I have for you today. We talked about a lot, y'all. I mean, it doesn't look like much, but it's a lot. Can you see my like creepy poetry handwriting? Yeah, it's outrageous. My first grade teacher didn't know what to do with me. So for unit design for proficiency, here are parting shots. What is the best unit design for proficiency? Well, you got a few choices. There's some wrong choices, definitely, but and I think y'all know what that looks like. But really, there are several right choices that you can make too. And a lot of it also has to do with your personality, what works best with your schedule, what works best with your teaching style, and what your students are interested in. That's the most important. But you can go with these few choices. Let's run through them real quick. Content-based, very common. Skill-based, newer, but really good. Standards-based, which is when you're going strictly off of the standards from ACTFL. Context-based, like maybe around a novel or a movie. And the last one being task-based, like you're going to have them do a task at the end of it, which is really cool. And some tips that I have for you for unit design, we just discussed, making sure that you are sticking with the assessment first. Make sure that you are starting with the assessment first. Second tip is make sure that you're going for function words over content words as much as possible. Of course, you're going to need the content words, but don't make that the focus of everything that you're teaching because you only have so much time. You only have so much time. And the next tip that I have for you, number 3, is start with those high frequency verbs and then expand out. And the last one is go to lalibrelanguagelearning.com /check to make sure that you've got some performance indicator language taped to your desk, ready to go so you can check it off every day, knowing that you're working on the right things. Because it's not about working harder, it's about working smarter. Make sure that you're working on the right things. Did you have fun? Did you learn a lot? I certainly hope so, because we do this every Wednesday. So make sure that you come back. Next Wednesday is for Spanish teachers. Last week, we did French 1 curriculum map, and next week, May 19th, we're going to be talking all about Spanish 1 curriculum maps. So I hope to see you there. But that's what I got for you today, y'all. A little bit of a short class. I hope it was fun. I hope you learned some things. And I hope that your units are beautiful now. Y'all have an amazing rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining me. Peace and love. Catch you later.